All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So hello and welcome. We'll get things rolling here. My name is Blake Rain. I'm a content and team leader at Tech, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. Our regular host, Evan Rang, is way late at a conference today, so you're stuck with me in his absence. But for those of you who don't know us, Tech is a full-service digital agency with offices in Cedar Falls and Des Moines, Iowa, and Tampa, Florida. And we've got remote team members in more than 30 different states. Our crew of more than 170 team members helps clients build unique customer experiences to grow traffic, convert leads, and track their entire marketing funnel in one spot. So whether you're already a partner of ours or we're meeting for the first time, we hope you learned something today, and we look forward to continuing the conversation beyond today's discussion. So now that we've got the general housekeeping out of the way, let's dive in. So today we have not one but four of our brightest and best team members here to share Tech's modern approach to paid media. A lot of businesses today are seeing declines in the performance of their paid media efforts, and it's because they're holding on to these legacy philosophies that just frankly are out of date. And the rules of the game have really changed the past couple of years. And today we'll be talking about how Tech has adapted the way we play. So you'll be hearing from Chase Boujon, one of our paid media strategists, Megan Anderson-Russell, one of our paid media team leads, Kip Russell, our director of social media, and Maggie Bozen, one of our social media team leads. So feel free to submit questions throughout the presentation. You notice the chat feature is disabled for today's event, but we'll be monitoring the Q&A feature throughout the presentation and plan to leave some time at the end to answer any questions at the end. So without further ado, I'll hand off to Chase to get us started.
Hey, thank you, Blake. Like Blake said, I'm a paid media strategist here at Tech. The word of the day that you're going to be hearing thrown around a lot is automation. We're going to be talking a lot about it and machine learning and artificial intelligence and how they're affecting the paid media landscape, specifically our paid search and paid social campaigns. There are a lot of similarities between search and social, but also some important differences that we're going to discuss. We're also going to compare and contrast previous best practices with current best practices, so you can understand the difference and how to modernize your campaigns. Lastly, throughout the webinar, we're going to discuss specific examples of how Tech uses automation to improve our campaigns and grow our clients' businesses. Because the point of coming here and learning how automation works and how to implement these strategies is ultimately to grow your bottom line. We're going to start off by discussing how automation is affecting paid search. First, we're going to discuss how automation has affected the best ways to structure your campaigns and keywords. Next, we're going to talk about how paid search is becoming much more like its programmatic counterparts and how to implement more user signals into the search experience. Think less keywords, more audience. Third, how to leverage your data to teach algorithms on your audience signals. And last, we're going to discuss how to pull all this together to utilize account structure, signals, and data to grow your business. And with that, I'm going to be passing it off to Megan.
All right, thanks, Chase. When I first started in paid search many moons ago, campaign segmentation was, There we go. Campaign segmentation was the buzzword of the day. Single keyword ad groups, also known as SCADs, ruled optimizations, and everything was broken out by type and granular modifiers. One campaign could have up to 100 ad groups, and manually updating everything was tedious. Over time, those granular campaigns have begun to drop. We've seen that in our account, and I'm sure you're experiencing the same thing with your own campaign. What's happening is that highly granular campaign structure is Google's machine learning AI. With no room to stretch its wings, the algorithm has no way to learn, and performance is. Instead of that hyper-segmentation of 10 years ago, we've seen much more success in broadening up ad groups, so you're grouping keywords by like-minded themes instead of modifiers. This gives the algorithm room to think and performance to excel. All right, I have a confession. Once upon a time, I would perform campaign audits, and my first red flag for any campaign setup would be pure broad keywords. Back in the day, and I'm talking just 2 to 3 years ago, broad keywords were not looked kindly upon due to their poor performance. However, times they are changing, and similar to data campaign structure, relying on just phrase and exact match keywords will also constrain your campaign performance. The way users are searching has changed, and the way that we think of how user search should evolve as well. Broad keywords have received Google's top makeover over the last year, and they just keep getting smarter. They're not only looking for similar matches of your keywords, but relying on additional clues from your landing page, user's location, search history, and more to understand not only that user's search term, but what the intent is behind their search, something that is currently missed by phrase and exact. Search intent rather than search terms is what we should be leaning into for excelling our campaign performance. Importing conversions back into your Google Ads campaign so you can optimize towards quality of leads versus volume of leads has previously been a goal of many of our clients, but for one reason or another, it never happened. Typically, implementation required a developer's support as cookies needed to be captured, form fields had to be amended to capture Gclib, and CRMs had to be adjusted to capture this data and feed it back into Google Ads. At the end of the day, it was usually deemed too expensive or complicated to invest the time into implementing. However, recently Google rolled out enhanced conversions, which allows you to achieve the same result via Google Tag Manager. No custom. Utilizing tags and triggers in Google Tag Manager, you can now capture hashed user data in the form of an email address or phone number that's pushed back to Google Ads. On your side, you'll store that lead information in your CRM until it's qualified. Then the only thing you need to do is push that hashed email and or phone number back to Google. Google then matches the two data sets on their end and gives credit where credit is due. Everything meets Google's strict privacy guidelines, so your data and the user's data is kept hashed and private. You can then use this information to make your campaign even smarter. Now that we have that great enhanced conversion data, we'll make it work for us. We tend to favor value-based bidding strategies for e-commerce clients where a target return on ad spend makes sense. However, recently, we've been stepping up the game with the majority of our lead gen clients by opting for a target return on ad spend strategy for them. Now, how does that work? It's simple. We assign a value to each of our conversion actions based on their perceived value in the user journey. For instance, for one client, phone calls usually result in a lot of spam for them, so they have a set value of $10. Form fills are much more valuable, so they're worth $100. Once a lead is considered qualified, it's pushed back into Google utilizing enhanced conversions and given a value of $500. Finally, a sale would have the actual value. For this client, it averages $1,000. Using this strategy, the algorithm is working smarter, not harder for us. We're giving it the necessary signals to go after leads that are deemed higher quality versus wasting its time on leads that may be high in volume in some cases, like the phone calls, but overall low quality. Remember, not all conversions are created equal, and assigning values allows the data to work for you.
Sorry, just unmuted myself. And on this slide, we're going to go into one of those case studies I was talking about, where we pulled all those things together that Megan just talked about to really grow the bottom line for one of our clients. So, little history, our team here at SvenUtech used to have a lot of old school marketers who are gung-ho about doing things manually for years. And I'm totally not talking about myself right now. These marketers are now singing the praises of automated bidding because our automated strategies consistently win out. Looking at this e-commerce client here in the betting space, we can see how once we implemented a automated bidding strategy and also went in and did a lot of those things with implementing more automated signals and making sure the account structure was set up to perform, we're able to lower our CPCs 30%, lower our cost per acquisition by 45%, and moreover, increase revenue for our client by 17% and increase their return on ad spend by 85%. This is opposed to the general mantra of manual bidding, which beforehand was occupying only about 95% of brand impression share, to now capturing 100% of click share. These automated strategies are just much more adept at optimizing the fact that not 100% of clicks are potential customers, and we can reduce spend by bidding down on such users. And with that, we are now going to transition from paid search over to paid social and how automation is affecting it.
Yep. Thanks, Chase. So diving into paid social and kind of like Meg was saying, feeling like the old timer in the call, back in the day, 2011, 2020, the way you set up Facebook campaign structures was much more complex, and it made sense based on a couple of things here. So if you look at the top part of this chart, you had complex structures. You maybe had, one campaign and, 10 ad sets or a bunch of campaigns trying to do a lot of things to find what were, your best performing audiences, or, all sorts of testing in there. And you're really relying on Facebook's in-app data because it was so good. There was so much data, and the pixel wasn't, pre iOS 14 was getting great signals back from websites. So you were really focused on finding those high performing smaller audiences, sort of similar to the same story of Google. And you wanted, audiences under 2 million, because you could really run really any type of creative, right? Against some stock imagery, some light post copy. And that the targeting was so good, you could really convert at scale there. Well, things are moving away from that post iOS 14. And I would say really even mid 2022, things really, they rolled out some products that Maggie will dive into in these next few slides, but really things are moving towards a more simple structure where you're going directional and broad, and you're looking for liquidity, enough inventory, kind of like how Google is saying, so that their automation and bid and AI can help you find those pockets of high performing audiences faster and better than we can by setting up campaigns a certain way that we'll dive into. A few other points I would like to call out on this slide is measurement. It's a big thing across all our clients, and I think in the industry now. And what we're seeing success here is make sure your pixel set up, which is really good at capturing in-app data and some website data. Having CAPI set up, which is really their conversion pixel that's server side, and auto advanced matching, which Maggie will talk to a little bit. And then really third-party attribution is something that we'll be talking to a lot of our clients about, tools that help tell the story that we're sort of lost post iOS 14. But ultimately, the way we look at campaigns, the most important optimization you can make is creative now. So creative does the hard work. Think about your creative as doing more of the targeting than as much as your ad set, because ultimately it's having a simple landing page and a very smart piece of creative can make the biggest difference in campaign performance. So we're really treating those almost like ad sets, and rotating smartly and testing to get really high performing creative before we start scaling in other areas. So moving to the next slide is, AI and machine learning, similar to Google, is why you're looking for liquidity. These broader audiences is relying on the AI and machine learning in app, in Facebook, in Meta, in TikTok, in LinkedIn, to do a lot of the optimizations faster than we can. And what you want to do is set up the structures in a way that really helps sort of train the dog, I like to say. The graphic on here does a really good job, and I'm no AI expert or machine learning expert, but how this really works is, Facebook's making sure, one, is your bid good enough? So are you bid capping in a way where you're choking yourself? Since there's so much competition, you want to make sure you have Facebook has the room to be competitive with your campaigns. Estimated action rate, which is really within your target audience, who's the person most likely to take the action that we need based on how you're creative and targeting set up. So if you're a shoe company, is this person engaged with shoe ads? Do they like, similar competitor shoe brands? Are they on shoe websites? All this information that we can't see that Facebook sees in real time, who's the most qualified? And then is your creative one top notch, like the algorithm, like set up for the algorithm? Is it very engaging? And then as it launches the campaign into learning phase, are people reacting, and which ad in your campaign are they reacting with more? And then trying to put that top performing stuff in front of the people most likely to take that action, which is why you're setting up campaigns in the way that Maggie's going to talk about in this next slide to maximize this AI and machine learning to get the most out of your campaigns. And we'll talk about how we've tested against that. And we're seeing that if you do set up this way, we're seeing better performance across the board. So I'll let Maggie take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Kip. Yeah, so with machine learning rewriting the playbook for online sales, Meta rolled out Power 5, which makes up, you guessed it, 5 best practices. So the first is auto advanced matching. This is a setting within Ads Manager that allows Facebook to improve ad performance and accurately attributes conversions, which then improves future ad performance. The second is account simplification. Before, advertisers would manually create multiple campaigns and ad sets. Now, by simplifying account structures, it's allowing machine learning to auto test that creative and those placements, and that drives the best results and will optimize for that in real time. So what's great about this is that it frees up the team's time to spend on the overall strategy and creative instead of manually pulling those levers. The third is campaign budget optimization. So instead of manually allocating budget at the ad set level, campaign budget optimization improves ROI by automatically distributing that spend across the top performing ad sets within that campaign. And that creates more efficiencies at a lower cost per acquisition. And then the fourth is automatic placements. This allows us to deliver the right ad to the right person at the lowest cost, depending on where they are. And then lastly is dynamic ads. So instead of manually refreshing creative for product ads, for example, those product ads that may or may not be relevant to the user that we're targeting, instead, using dynamic ads, we can automatically deliver the right product ad to that right person based on their interest or their site activity. And with that, on the next slide, we'll dive a little deeper into a case study around some account simplification that we've done for one of our clients here at SpinUtech. So it was a SaaS client of ours. We simplified the account structure, going from 12 campaigns within this ad account down to 4. And we used the same daily budget, but we were able to have higher daily budgets across fewer campaigns. This allowed us to get out of the learning phase quicker. It avoided redundancy. It decreased audience overlap. And most importantly, with these changes, we saw a 40% decrease in cost per lead in a matter of days. So just by simplifying what we are doing and letting machine learning, do what it does best, we saw instant results for our client. And with that, I'll pass it back to Kip to talk through learning phase a little bit further.
Yep. Thanks, Maggie. A lot of people have heard of learning phase, or maybe just heard their buying professionals talk about it. But really, what it is in Facebook and TikTok and LinkedIn is a 7-day window. In LinkedIn, I think it's 7 to 10 days, or as fast as you can get to 50 conversions. And what that is a time frame where the machine is figuring out who the right person is. Right, it's trying to optimize and get to that 50 conversions. Then it has enough data to say, hey, we think we know exactly who this person is that's going to take. Or direction, who these people are that are going to take action on your ads. And you can see this chart on the right. It's sort of getting people at a high cost per acquisition, then low cost per acquisition, and getting to a point where it can really stabilize in terms of performance. And what we're seeing here is, and especially when we audit campaigns for clients, like people are making optimizations after a day of launching and not getting out of learning phase. And every time you make a change, whether it's to the budget or to the creative, if it's significant enough, you're gonna reset learning phase. So you need another 7 days. So it's important that you let the campaign get out of learning phase as fast as possible, to what Maggie was saying above, and setting your campaigns up that you can get 50 conversions within that week. So if you're underspending, it could be a sign that you're underspending in Facebook. If you're not getting out of learning phase within that time frame, and once you're out of that, what we're seeing is performance stabilize and then get better over time. Is you sort of the machine is learning who that person is. It has a direction and can find more of them. So it's important to get through that phase, and that you're not consistently optimizing and tinkering on your campaigns to start and stop that. And in fact, that case study that we talked about in the slide above that, we did see even 3 weeks after we reset the campaigns that performance took an even better, even dropped and got even better over time as the machine was really figuring out who that person was. And then you want to make smart optimizations like, okay, what we're seeing now is it's time to turn off these creatives, or is it burnt out the creative in the first few weeks and we're seeing diminishing returns? Now it's time to then make and tinker on those campaigns. So it's really important that you're paying attention to this, but also that you're setting up your campaigns in a way to, one, spend to get out of learning phase, and also that you're giving it enough breath to get to those 50 conversions so that you can make a decision as a client to say, hey, you know what, we think that this is not where we want to be. We need to make some improvements and reset the campaign or maybe the creative. So with that, we'll dive into really the most important part of your Facebook and TikTok and all these social media campaigns is the creative.
Yeah, as Kip mentioned, more than ever, creative is becoming so important to drive those high performing ads on paid social. The higher quality ads perform better in the Facebook auction because the auction is designed to help create high quality experiences for its users. So creative is that first thing that we should be thinking about in our overall strategy. And advertising on one channel is not the same as advertising on other channels. So gone are the days of running the same creative across all of your social channels. For example, advertising on TikTok isn't the same as advertising on other social channels like Facebook. Ads that are true to the brand and authentic to that channel will perform best. So we've learned it's really hard to repurpose other video content and make it work for TikTok. Building ads that are unique to TikTok, using sound, using creators are what is going to perform best on that channel. It's also important to consider the shelf life of the creative across channels. Creative may fatigue quicker on TikTok than it does on Facebook. So it's important to rotate fresh creative when you start to see that performance dip. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Blake for any questions that might have come through.
It looks like we did have a handful of questions here that we'll go through. If you have any others, feel free to drop those in as we're going. But if you need some time to process everything you just learned, I don't blame you that we kind of threw a lot at you there. But to start, I think we have a question for both paid search and paid social teams. So the question is about just the new campaign structures for Facebook and Google. They're just wondering if we've tested any of those with any of our clients currently or in the past.
I could go ahead and start with answering for paid search. Yes, we have tested out the new structure, both with e-commerce clients and traditional B2B lead gen clients. In both cases, we see implementing this new structure of simplified campaign structure, bucketing our keywords instead of into SKAGs, single keyword ad groups, more into ad groups grouped around certain themes or business objectives. This now performs better. It gets much more relevant search terms. It has better click-through rates and ultimately just better conversion rates. And then for our e-commerce clients, instead of doing, again, single product ad groups, SPAGs, again, we're grouping things together and even using the latest Google Ads campaign, Performance Max. And we've been seeing, especially for our e-commerce clients with Performance Max, just huge gains in terms of just driving volume in terms of purchases, growing revenue, and growing profitability. It's often hard to kind of pull off the trifecta and get all three, but adopting these has just made a huge difference for our clients.
Yep. I get in from the paid social. Yeah, we definitely, like, a lot of people are skeptical when these newer like campaign structures like Power 5 or Advantage Plus for ecom roll out, and we want to test into them. And what we're seeing across the board is that they are performing better. And in fact, we've obviously walked you through a case study. We have other case studies for ecom clients. And the one thing I will note is, like, creative, we've been saying, I think for a long time, as just an agency point of view, that creative is the best optimization you can make. So it's something that I think we pride ourselves on saying for a couple of years, even before it was maybe contemporary to say. But yeah, we're seeing across the board that this is doing better.
Some great question, great response. For the paid search team, this question is about Performance Max, which is another example of a paid media campaign that leverages machine learning. They're just wondering if that's something that we utilized with any of our clients previously and what kind of results we've seen from that.
Yeah, as Kate mentioned, for our e-commerce clients, our go-to recently has been Performance Max, just because against all of our A/B tests we've done with Performance Max against traditional shopping campaigns, Performance Max has always dominated in performance. However, we are still working on Performance Max with our lead gen campaign. We are working closely with our Google reps and finding our best, updating our best practices for lead gen, because Performance Max does go hard after that volume, which I just mentioned, and our goal is to control the quality over volume. So making sure that clients have strong captchas on their site, making sure we have the best audience signals we can provide for those campaigns has been our priority with Performance for lead gen.
Thanks, Megan. Looks like our third and final question is for the paid social team. I think Kip had mentioned specifically, and Maggie talked to you about just the value of, or the importance of creative in your social ads. So this question is, how often should you be refreshing or optimizing your creative in your social ads?
Yeah, I can take that one. I think that's a great question, and it really varies based on the paid social channel that you are running your campaigns on. We've seen ad fatigue really quickly on TikTok, for example, where we're needing to update as early as 7 days, but around like 14 days has been the average that we've seen. On Facebook, We like to try to make updates on a monthly basis, but at least every quarter. And really at the end of the day, it kind of comes down to the performance that you're seeing for your clients and making sure that when you understand like what that performance dip looks like in order to start to make those creative changes.
Sure. Thanks, Maggie. That's great guidance. Before we close up shop today, I just want to say thank you to all our presenters today, and thank you also to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to join us today. We really appreciate you taking the time. Our next webinar is actually coming up at the end of March. Two of our top marketing automation experts will be diving into how marketing automation can take, the cold contacts in your database and nurture them into customers and, more importantly, even to repeat customers. So because you attended today's webinar, we'll email you directly with an invitation to that one. So check your inbox here in the near future. But in the meantime, if you have any questions about today's webinar that, you didn't get a chance to ask or that we didn't get to in the Q&A, or even if you think of something later, you can always reach out to us at webinar@spinutech.com. We'll be happy to connect you with, one of these four or another subject matter expert. So thanks for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you again at the end of the month.